There are nights when the heart feels heavier than the body, nights when thoughts drift like tired birds searching for a place to land, nights when the soul, worn thin by all it tried to carry, whispers softly into the darkness, longing for a rest deeper than sleep, a rest that touches the places exhaustion has lived for too long. If this is such a night, let your breath slow, just a little, letting the ribcage rise gently, and fall even more gently, letting the tight places begin to loosen, letting the noise inside fade into softer echoes. Take a slow, deep breath. Let your shoulders soften. Allow your jaw to relax. Let the weight you've been carrying settle for a moment at your feet. Now, a little more slowly, let the breath move again, deep, warm, unhurried, as though the night itself is breathing with you, steadying you, quieting you, drawing you gently inward toward peace. If these stories bring you peace, take a moment to like this video. Subscribe for more nightly reflections, and share where you're listening from tonight. Your words and presence help keep this space warm and growing. Now, take another slow breath. Let's begin. A soft hush rests across the evening landscape, lamplight flickering in gentle arcs across worn earth, trees standing like quiet guardians, the sky stretching wide above with its tender blanket of starlight, and into this calm, the weary traveler arrives, steps slow, heart heavy, carrying burdens that were never meant to be carried alone. The air holds the faint warmth of the day, but night has wrapped everything in a deeper stillness, a stillness that feels safe, as though creation itself is whispering, "It is time to rest." And in that quiet, a verse rises like a soft breeze across the heart, a whisper remembered, a promise spoken gently for the weary. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The words move through the traveler like warm wind brushing over tired skin, not rushed, not demanding, simply present, inviting, kind. The traveler stops beneath the arch of an ancient tree, leaves swaying with small, soothing motions, and lowers their head, feeling the truth of those words settle into the deepest chamber of the chest, a truth that says, "You do not have to hold this alone." The promise is not about effort, not about worthiness, not about doing more to earn relief. It is about coming as you are, weary, unfinished, trembling at the edges, and being received with gentleness. Another slow breath rises, and this one feels different, softer, like the first release after carrying something heavy for too long. The tree canopy rustles lightly, a sound like quiet reassurance, like the night bending low to say rest is near, rest is here, rest is waiting. Let your breath deepen again, warm, slow, steady, allowing the heart to settle, allowing the mind to ease, allowing the soul to begin its gentle descent into the comfort God gives to those who are tired from holding everything together. A soft glow forms at the edges of the night, not from torch or lantern, but from peace beginning to rise, peace that flows like gentle oil over weary spirit, peace that promises, "You will not walk this night alone." In this quiet beginning, the traveler takes one small step inward, toward the rest only God can give, toward the comfort waiting in His presence, toward the peace that asks for nothing except the simple willingness to come. The traveler remains beneath the ancient tree, the night wrapped softly around their shoulders, their breath slowly finding a calmer rhythm, and in this gentle stillness, a deeper truth begins to rise from within, the kind of truth that lives beneath the surface of day-to-day strength, beneath the practiced smile, beneath the quiet, steady way the traveler has learned to carry more than anyone ever sees. Weariness does not always show itself loudly. It does not always break, or cry, or collapse. Sometimes it hides behind responsibility, behind routines, behind the ability to keep going even when the soul grows thin. The traveler feels that thinness now, not as failure, not as weakness, but as the quiet ache that comes from trying to be strong for too long. A faint breeze brushes across their face, cool and tender, as though the night itself is acknowledging the weight the traveler has held in silence. The weight of expectations carried without pause, the weight of burdens accepted without question, the weight of thoughts that chatter quietly long after the world has gone to sleep. Their shoulders soften, the muscles releasing strands of tension they didn't realize had woven themselves so tightly through the day, and with the release comes an inward settling, a sense that the soul is finally allowed to speak its weariness without fear of being judged. The traveler lowers onto a smooth patch of earth beneath the tree's broad branches, hands resting gently on their knees, breath easing in slow, warm waves, and in this moment of stillness, they begin to notice the many forms their weariness has taken. A heaviness behind the eyes, a tightness in the chest, a softness in the spine that feels like collapse, the kind of fatigue that is not solved by sleep because it does not live in the body, it lives in the soul. There are memories rising now, moments where the traveler tried to be patient when their spirit felt frayed, moments where they tried to be kind while holding hidden weight, moments where they appeared steady though their inner world trembled quietly beneath the surface. This is the weariness Jesus sees. The weariness he named when he spoke the words, "Come to me, all who are weary." He did not call only the tired, he called the ones who hide their exhaustion well. He called the ones who carry more within than anyone outside could ever guess. He called the ones who are strong even when they are breaking in small, invisible ways. And the traveler feels that call now resting gently upon their spirit, not demanding that they be different, not asking that they be more, simply inviting them to be honest, to be open, to be seen in the places where they feel most worn. The tree above them sways slowly, its leaves whispering in soft, soothing tones, a lullaby of creation that seems to echo God's own voice, a voice that does not rush, does not push, does not tell the weary to be strong, but tells them instead, rest here, let go here, you do not need to carry this tonight. The traveler breathes deeply again, feeling the breath move into the tired spaces hidden deep inside, and as they exhale, the inner heaviness softens, not gone yet, but loosened, as though the heart is finally beginning to admit how much it has held and how deeply it longs to be carried. This is the weariness beneath the surface, the weariness Jesus sees, the weariness he responds to with gentleness instead of expectation, with compassion instead of command, with rest instead of burden. The night settles deeper, the stars shimmer with soft clarity, and the traveler sits quietly in the honest truth that they are tired far beyond what they've ever spoken, and that God is tender enough to meet them exactly there. The traveler remains seated beneath the sheltering branches, the night deepening around them in gentle layers, the river's soft murmur drifting like a lullaby across the air, and within this quiet, another truth rises, not loud, not urgent, but fragile, like a small cry carried on a trembling breath. Weariness has many voices. Sometimes it speaks through tears, sometimes through silence, and sometimes through the soft tightening of the chest when the soul is too tired to keep pretending it is fine. The traveler feels that tightening now, a subtle ache behind the breastbone, a delicate pull in the ribs, the kind of ache that comes when the heart holds too much for too long, when the spirit whispers for comfort but has not known how to ask. A long breath moves through them, slow, warm, heavy, and for a moment the traveler simply listens to the sound of their own exhale, a sound that carries something unspoken, something small and trembling, something honest. It is the quiet cry of a tired heart. The cry that says, "I've tried so long, I've held so much, I don't know how to rest on my own." The traveler does not speak. They do not need to. For in this sacred stillness, God hears the unspoken, every softened ache, every buried worry, every longing for release that the traveler has held beneath layers of strength. The breeze shifts gently, brushing against the traveler's cheek like a tender hand, and with that soft touch comes the assurance that the one who invites the weary is listening, fully, lovingly, without rushing them to be okay. The traveler lowers their head, hands resting loosely in their lap, and the quiet cry within rises again, not louder but clearer, like a whisper finally allowed to exist. It is the whisper of someone who has tried to be steady even when their spirit trembled. Someone who has tried to give even when their inner world felt empty. Someone who has carried burdens so quietly that even they forgot how heavy they truly were. This whisper does not shame them. It frees them. For in naming even the smallest thread of weariness, the heart opens to the rest Jesus offers. Rest that meets honesty with tenderness. Rest that meets weakness with compassion. Rest that meets the tired soul with arms that never grow weary. The traveler's breath trembles slightly as they inhale again, a tremble not of fear but of release, like the first small crack in a carefully guarded wall that has stood for years protecting the fragile inside. The night listens patiently. The river murmurs softly. The tree above stands still as though honoring the vulnerability unfolding in the traveler's chest. And in that honoring silence, the traveler feels it, the presence of God drawing even closer, not with intensity, not with force, but with the gentlest nearness, the kind that sits beside the weary and asks for nothing but honesty. A warmth begins to bloom under the sternum, soft, slow, spreading outward like a small light awakening in a long dark room. A light that does not chase shadows but comforts them, soothes them, embraces them. This is the sacred truth the tired heart needed. God does not wait for strength to return before drawing near. He comes close to the trembling, the wounded, the overwhelmed, and he stays until rest begins from the inside out. The traveler lifts their gaze, eyes soft, not dry, not bright, but honest, and the night seems to bow gently as if welcoming the fragile beauty of a heart finally seen. In this tender moment, the quiet cry of the tired heart is no longer hidden, no longer suppressed, no longer alone. It is heard, held, and met by the one who whispers, "Come to me, and I will give you rest." The traveler sits in the hush beneath the ancient tree, their breath softening, their heart gently exposed, the quiet cry within finally given room to exist, and in that fragile openness, something begins to move through the night, a presence subtle at first, like a warm breeze rising from a distant hillside, a presence carrying not demand but invitation. It comes slowly, as though stepping gently across the landscape, as though careful not to startle the weary soul resting beneath the branches, as though honoring the tenderness unfolding within the traveler's chest. The night has fallen into deep stillness, the sky a quiet canopy of muted stars, the river's steady murmur woven softly into the silence, and through this quiet world a whisper begins to form, a whisper so gentle it almost feels like a memory, a whisper that reaches through every bit of noise the traveler has carried inside. "Come to me." The words brush softly against the heart, not spoken aloud, not carried by wind or leaf, but rising within the traveler like warmth rising through cold hands, a whisper of the one who sees the weary soul and bends toward it with compassion. "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened." The traveler feels the words, feels them settle over their spirit like soft cloth laid across trembling shoulders, feels them gather gently at the edges of their exhaustion, feels them wrap around the places that have held too much for far too long. The invitation does not accuse. It does not ask why the traveler is tired. It does not question their strength or their limits or their efforts. It simply calls. Softly, tenderly, faithfully, come to me. The traveler lifts their gaze slightly, eyes reflecting the faint shimmer of starlight caught between branches, and they sense something profound. This invitation is not for the strong, but for the weary. Not for the ones who have it together, but for the ones unraveling quietly in the silence of their own hearts. This invitation is for them. Tonight. Exactly as they are. The presence moves closer, not seen in form but felt in warmth, in the gentle softening of breath, in the way the air seems to shift into a tender hush that carries no weight except comfort. Take my yoke upon you. The words rise again like a soft wave across still water, quiet, steady, full of peace, offering not burden but companionship, offering not pressure but shared strength. The traveler's shoulders relax further, the muscles releasing another thin layer of hidden strain, their chest widening with a breath that feels just a little freer, a little warmer, as though something deep inside is beginning to trust the gentleness arriving in the night. For I am gentle and humble in heart. The traveler hears it, not as sound but as truth, truth sinking like warm oil into the cracks left by long-held tension, truth soft enough to soothe the hidden bruises the world never sees. The invitation is clear now. Come, rest, let go. You do not need to carry this alone. The traveler closes their eyes, the night pressing gently around them like soft hands cupping a fragile flame, and in the center of their being they feel the invitation anchor itself, steady, solid, true. I will give you rest. The words do not rush. They do not fade. They settle deep, into bone, into breath, into every tired corner the traveler has held quietly beyond the reach of others. Rest is not something they must earn. Rest is something being given, offered, extended with tenderness from the one who sees the weariness no one else recognizes. The traveler breathes in, slow, unhurried, letting the invitation wash through their inner world, and in that sacred moment they know they are being called into a rest deeper than sleep, into a rest that touches the soul where exhaustion once lived. The traveler remains beneath the quiet shelter of the ancient tree, the invitation still echoing softly in the chambers of the heart. Come to me, words warm as lamplight, gentle as river breeze, tender enough to reach the deepest layers of a weary soul. The night around them feels changed, not louder, not brighter, but softer, as though every leaf, every shadow, every ripple of the river is aware that something sacred has been spoken into the traveler's spirit. And in this softened stillness, a new stirring begins, a subtle shift within, not the strength to rise nor the clarity to decide, but the smallest willingness to take one quiet step toward surrender. Surrender is not collapse. It is not failure. It is not giving up. It is the gentle loosening of the grip the heart keeps on the things too heavy to hold alone. The traveler exhales slowly, a warm release that carries the faintest thread of resistance out into the night air, and with that breath, their fingers uncurl slightly, relaxing from the tightness they did not realize they carried. Above them, the tree sways with a soft rustle, its branches moving like slow waves across a moonlit sea, and the sound feels like encouragement, like creation whispering, "It's safe, you can let go here, just a little." The traveler places a hand over the center of their chest, feeling the slow, steady thump of a heart long accustomed to holding on tightly, to bracing for what might come, to carrying strength long after strength had faded. And in that gentle touch, they feel something soften, a small crack in the old armor, a slight loosening of the invisible weight pressed against their ribs, a quiet surrender beginning to take root. The invitation returns again, not in words but in warmth, a presence settling close, as though the one who said "Come to me" has stepped nearer still, patient, unrushed, waiting not for perfection but for honesty. "Take my yoke upon you." The traveler feels the meaning in a way they never have, a yoke not of pressure but of shared weight, shared strength, shared journey, a yoke woven from gentleness instead of demand, from kindness instead of expectation. The night grows deeper, the stars glimmer softly overhead, and the river hums in slow rhythms that invite the spirit to release its hold on what it was never meant to carry alone. Another breath rises, deeper, warmer, guided not by effort but by the calm that follows invitation, and with that breath, the traveler admits quietly, they are tired of carrying themselves by themselves. Admitting is its own kind of surrender. A holy kind. A freeing kind. The kind that opens the first small door into the rest Jesus promised. The traveler leans slightly forward, not out of collapse but out of relief, a posture of someone who has finally found a place soft enough to exhale and honest enough to name their inward fatigue. The breeze sweeps softly across their back, cool, steady, as though offering comfort in the spaces where the heart has long been tense. Surrender does not happen at once. It happens in pauses like this, in breaths that deepen because the soul has found permission to stop bracing, to stop carrying, to stop being the only source of strength. The traveler lets the eyes drift closed, their body warming beneath the gentle blanket of night, their heart loosening beneath the gentle weight of grace, and in this quiet leaning, the first step of surrender is taken, not by rising but by resting. By allowing God's invitation to settle deeper than worry, deeper than exhaustion, deeper than the need to hold everything together. By whispering silently in the soul, "I cannot carry this alone and I don't have to." The traveler remains beneath the ancient tree, eyes softly closed, breath deepening into warm, unhurried waves. The first quiet threads of surrender settling into the deepest folds of the heart, and in this tender stillness, something unexpected begins to happen. Relief arrives before understanding does. It comes gently, the way dawn touches the horizon long before the sun appears, a soft brightening within the center of the chest, subtle, steady, like warmth seeping into cold hands held toward a quiet fire. The traveler does not know why the tension loosens. They do not know how the breath deepens. They cannot explain the slow release unfurling beneath their ribs, but they feel it, a lifting, a lightening, a quiet shift in the way the soul holds itself. Relief does not wait for clarity. It responds to nearness. It responds to gentleness. It responds to love entering tired places with kindness instead of demands. The traveler lets their shoulders soften, the muscles easing with a kind of surrender the mind cannot yet name. A surrender rising not from effort but from presence, the presence of the one who promised rest to those who are weary. A warm breeze drifts through the branches overhead, rustling the leaves in slow, soothing motions, and the sound wraps around the traveler like a whispered reassurance. You are not carrying this alone, not anymore. The relief grows, not as something sudden but as something steady, a soft pressure lifting from behind the heart, a loosening in the throat, a quiet calm spreading across the mind like ripples moving outward from a gentle touch. The traveler leans back slightly against the tree's sturdy trunk, its bark warm from the memory of daylight, its strength offering support where their own has worn thin, and in that leaning, the traveler feels it, the sweetness of being held by something steadier than their own strength. The night deepens its quiet, the river hums its patient lullaby, and relief continues to gently bloom in the fragile spaces within, the spaces that once braced against disappointment, against exhaustion, against the fear of falling apart. But here, in this tender stillness, relief moves unhindered because love has made room for the heart to exhale without fear of collapse, without fear of judgment, without fear of being too much or not enough. The traveler's breath shifts again, slow inhale, warm exhale, and the exhale feels different now, as though it's releasing something the traveler had not realized they were holding, the lingering tension of trying to appear steady, trying to remain composed, trying to shoulder everything with quiet resilience. Relief whispers gently, "You don't have to be strong to be held." And with that whisper comes another soft widening in the chest, another warmth blooming beneath the sternum, another quiet settling deep in the bones. It is the beginning of a rest the traveler does not yet understand. Rest that comes not from sleep but from being seen, from being met, from being gently invited into a love that carries what they cannot. The traveler rests their palm against the earth beside them, feeling the cool soil press gently back, feeling grounded, rooted, supported by a world that God Himself sustains, and a peace begins to rise like soft water filling low places left empty for too long. They do not yet understand this peace. They do not fully grasp its source. They cannot articulate why the weight feels lighter or why the breath feels freer, and they do not have to. For relief arrives before comprehension, rest begins before reasons appear, and peace takes root long before the mind is ready to name what the heart already feels. The traveler remains still, so still, resting in a relief that expects nothing and asks nothing but presence. And in that quiet relief the soul begins to whisper, maybe rest is possible, maybe gentleness is safe, maybe love can hold what I no longer can. The traveler remains in the warm hush beneath the ancient tree, the soft glow of relief beginning to gather inside them, steady as embers in a sheltered fire, and in the quiet that follows, something begins to shift, not around them, but within them, a sense of presence drawing closer with gentle, unhurried steps. It is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It does not push or pull. It simply comes near, the way dawn comes near without sound, the way warmth comes near without force, the way love comes near without asking permission. The traveler's breath slows even further, each inhale rising like a soft tide, each exhale drifting out in warm, quiet ribbons, and somewhere in the stillness, their heart becomes aware of what the mind has not yet formed into words. They are not alone. A gentle warmth settles around their shoulders, neither wind nor temperature nor imagination, but presence, a presence tender enough to be felt in the smallest corners of a weary spirit, the corners that ache for comfort yet hesitate to hope. The traveler opens their eyes only slightly, just enough to see the faint shimmer of moonlight resting across the quiet landscape, and though nothing visible has changed, everything feels different, as though the air itself has softened with the nearness of someone who holds no judgment, only gentleness. Come to me. The invitation rises again, not spoken into the air but spoken into their spirit, a whisper that carries warmth instead of pressure, a whisper that feels like a hand extended toward tired hands, a whisper that says you are safe to come closer, safe to rest, safe to lean. The traveler does not move in any grand way, but their heart shifts, a small turning, a soft leaning inward, toward the one whose nearness feels like calm woven into light, like mercy shaped into breath. There is no distance now between their tiredness and his compassion. No wall. No barrier. No hesitance from the one who calls the weary with a voice that never rushes and never condemns. The river continues its slow whisper, its gentle rhythm now sounding like an echo of divine footsteps, steady, unbroken, drawing nearer with each soft ripple across the stones. The traveler's chest warms, a glow blooming behind the sternum, as though something unseen has rested a tender hand over their heart, steadying its tired rhythms, quieting its tremors, lifting its heaviness with a touch so soft it feels like peace made tangible. You are not alone. The truth expands within them, not as thought, not as doctrine, but as presence, a presence that fills the air like soft light, a presence that breathes with the traveler's breath, a presence that sits close enough for the soul to feel held without being touched, comforted without being told, loved without being measured. The traveler lowers their head, eyes softening fully shut now, as the warmth around them gathers closer, a closeness that does not press but surrounds, does not demand but steadies, does not question but understands. In this nearness, the soul finally feels permission to rest without resistance, to soften without fear, to lean without shame, to breathe without bracing. And in the quiet glow of this gentle, holy nearness, one truth settles deeper than the traveler ever expected. Rest is not found in escape. Rest is found in him. In the one who comes close to the weary, to the burdened, to the trembling, and stays close until peace rises like morning light within a once weary soul. The traveler rests beneath the ancient tree, the warmth of divine nearness settling gently over every trace of weariness, their breath slow, their body softened into the earth, their spirit beginning to stretch into spaces that once felt too tight, too heavy, too guarded. And in this deepening quiet, a new awareness begins to rise, not of burden, but of gentleness, a gentleness that wraps around the traveler like soft cloth, woven from threads of mercy, threads of kindness, threads of love so tender it feels like light resting on the skin. Take my yoke upon you. The words float through the traveler's spirit like warm wind drifting across still water, not pressing, not tightening, not weighing down, but offering something different, a yoke that does not resemble the heaviness the traveler has known. The traveler has carried yokes before, the yoke of expectation, the yoke of trying to be enough, the yoke of holding everything together when the heart felt fractured, the yoke of appearing steady even when the soul trembled quietly beneath the surface. Those yokes were heavy. Those yokes pressed the soul downward. Those yokes demanded more than the weary spirit could give. But this yoke, the one Jesus offers, feels nothing like those. It feels like companionship. It feels like shared strength. It feels like resting the weight of the heart against someone who does not break beneath what he holds. The traveler lifts their chin slightly, eyes still closed, breath warm in the night air, and they sense it, a gentle joining, a presence beside them that carries the heaviness so the traveler no longer has to. The yoke Jesus offers is not a burden placed on the weary. It is a burden lifted from them. It is a promise of partnership in every step they take, a promise that no weight will ever again be carried alone. For I am gentle, the words unfurl inside the traveler like soft petals opening to a warm dawn, gentleness seeping into places that had grown rigid with strain, Gentleness soothing old bruises the world never noticed. Gentleness reminding the weary soul that love does not push, does not demand, does not wound. Gentle and humble in heart. The night seems to bend closer as those words settle deeply, a humility so vast it chooses to kneel with the weary rather than stand above them. A humility that meets the tired at their lowest point without shame, without reprimand, without hesitation. The traveler feels the warmth grow, a soft expanding beneath the ribs, a loosening in the chest, a quiet sense of being accompanied by someone whose strength does not overshadow but surrounds, uplifts, and holds. The yoke of Jesus is not made of weight. It is made of nearness. It is made of love that steadies instead of burdens, love that guides instead of pressures, love that carries instead of demands. The traveler shifts slightly, their body relaxing deeper into the welcoming earth, their spirit leaning gently toward the presence beside them, and that small leaning feels like acceptance, the beginning of choosing a yoke that offers rest instead of exhaustion. In the quiet glow of night, the traveler senses the difference between the heavy yokes of life and the light yoke of love, and their heart whispers with a trembling, hopeful softness, "Maybe I can rest here. Maybe I can be carried here. Maybe this yoke is what my soul has needed all along." The tree above murmurs in approval, the river hums in peaceful rhythm, and the traveler breathes deeply, entering a rest not earned but given, a rest wrapped in the lightness of God's gentle love. The traveler remains beneath the ancient tree, the quiet of the night wrapped around them like a warm cloak, the nearness of divine gentleness resting over their spirit in soft, steady waves. And in this sacred stillness, a truth begins to rise, a truth both simple and profound, a truth the weary heart has long avoided because it feared collapsing if it ever loosened its grip. There are burdens the traveler was never meant to carry. Not alone. Not in silence. Not with trembling determination that pretended to be strength. And the night, deep and tender, seems to whisper this truth into the spaces where tension still lingers, inviting the traveler to release what has weighed the soul far beyond its God-given capacity. A slow inhale rises, warm, steady, drawing comfort into the deepest places, and with the exhale comes the faintest release, a small unwinding of invisible threads that had cinched too tightly around the heart. The traveler lifts a hand to their chest, fingertips resting lightly over the spot where heaviness once pulsed, and they feel it, a loosening, a quiet softening, a subtle shift that signals the beginning of letting go. Not all at once. Not in dramatic collapse. But quietly, tenderly, as though love itself were untying knots the traveler had forgotten how to loosen. The presence beside them remains steady, strong without intimidation, near without intrusion, inviting without forcing, and in that gentle companionship, the traveler senses permission to surrender burdens they had believed were theirs alone to bear. The first burden to release is the weight of pretending. The silent expectation to hold everything together, to be composed, to be endlessly responsible even when the soul trembles. The traveler exhales slowly, and the weight of pretense slips like sand from tired hands. Next comes the burden of long-held worries, threads of fear woven so tightly into the heart that they felt like part of its structure, threads that whispered what if, and held the spirit hostage to storms that never came. The traveler breathes again, a deep, warm breath that rises from the earth beneath them, and as they exhale, the worries loosen, not disappearing but losing their grip, their hold, their dominance. There are burdens tied to memories, old disappointments, silent regrets, unspoken griefs, and these rise too, softly, hesitantly, like shadows afraid of the light, until they feel the gentleness of the one who said, "My yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Under the canopy of starlight, the traveler feels a single tear slip free, not of pain but of release, a release that lifts something once anchored deep inside, a release that brings warmth into places once cold with strain. Another burden rises, the burden of self-reliance, the belief that everything must be solved alone. The traveler remains curled gently beneath the ancient tree, their body softened into the warm earth, their spirits slowly loosening from the weight of burdens long held, and in the quiet that follows release, something tender begins to rise, a breath, not ordinary, not shallow, but deep, so deep it seems to reach into places where exhaustion once lived like an unwelcome guest. The inhale rises slowly at first, a soft gathering of air just beneath the ribs, but then it deepens, spreading warmth outward, filling hollow spaces that had forgotten what fullness felt like, reaching corners of the soul where breath rarely traveled, corners dimmed by years of quiet strain. The traveler does not force it. The breath comes naturally, as though guided by the presence sitting quietly beside them, as though carried by the tenderness woven into the night air, as though invited by a love that knows how to soothe the tired parts of a person without demanding anything in return. As the breath expands, the traveler feels something shift, a widening behind the sternum, a softening around the heart, a gentle lifting in places once pressed down by invisible weight. The breath reaches deeper still, drawing up warmth from the core of the body, circulating through the chest, moving into the spine, the limbs, the quiet spaces where sorrow once pooled, where fear once settled, where weariness once whispered its tired echoes. And with this deep inhale, the soul remembers something. That breath is not merely survival, it is invitation, it is renewal, it is the first language of peace. The exhale flows out slowly, smooth as warm evening wind slipping between tall grasses, carrying with it traces of tension still clinging to the traveler's spirit, carrying with it the remnants of old worries that had lingered like shadows, carrying with it the echoes of burden that no longer belong to a heart invited into rest. The traveler sinks deeper into the earth, the soil firm beneath their palms, grounding them, holding them, quietly echoing the steady presence of the one who promised rest to the weary. Another deep breath rises, this one fuller, warmer, like a long-awaited release, and the traveler feels the body respond, muscles softening, jaw loosening, shoulders lowering with a kind of relief that feels almost holy. The breath grows into rhythm now, an inhale that stretches gently into the spirit, an exhale that eases like warm water across tired skin. Each breath a quiet reminder that rest is becoming real, becoming present, becoming a lived experience rather than a distant hope. The night listens. The tree listens. The river listens. All creation seems to pause in reverence for the sacred moment of a weary soul breathing deeply after too long of shallow survival. The traveler feels tears gather lightly beneath closed lids, not from sadness but from the sweet relief of finally taking a breath that reaches places untouched by years of quiet effort, places that needed air as much as they needed love. The presence beside them remains constant, unmoving, unwavering, steady as moonlit water, tender as a hand resting near a trembling heart, and the traveler senses that each deep breath is not taken alone, but shared, carried, joined by the one who offers his rest to the weary. A soft warmth rises from the earth beneath them, from the air around them, from the quiet presence near them, and the traveler knows, this breath is different. This rest is different. This peace is different. For it is not born of escape but of surrender, not born of understanding but of being held, not born of silence but of divine nearness gently shaping the soul into calm. The traveler rests, breathing deeply, fully, freely, for the first time in a long, winding season. And the breath becomes a prayer, unspoken, but felt, a prayer that whispers into the heart of God with every rise and fall of the weary traveler's chest. The traveler remains beneath the ancient tree, breath moving in warm, steady currents, their body softened into the comforting earth, their spirit beginning to awaken to a new kind of calm, a calm that comes not from figuring life out but from letting love in. In the deep quiet of this moment, something begins to shift inside, a slow, tender unfolding in the center of the chest, a soft releasing in places where strain once lived, a gentle stirring that feels like trust just beginning to bloom. Trust does not arrive quickly. It does not rush in like a sudden wind. It does not demand space or force the heart open. Trust grows the way dawn grows, quietly, softly, almost imperceptibly, until the world is touched by light it didn't know was coming. The traveler senses this light rising inside them now, not bright but warm, a warmth that feels like the beginning of believing again, believing that rest is real, believing that love is gentle, believing that God does not push the weary but gathers them close with a tenderness the heart has long forgotten. I am gentle. The words move through the traveler like a slow breeze passing through tall reeds, and their heart feels it, a soft easing in the places once braced for disappointment, a quiet loosening in the places once shielded from vulnerability. Gentleness. This is the way he leads. This is the way he holds. This is the way he restores. The traveler lifts their head slightly, eyes still closed, face softened in the hush of night, and they feel something subtle, the instinct to brace beginning to fade, the instinct to tighten beginning to dissolve, the instinct to control beginning to exhale into the presence of someone trustworthy. For the first time in a long while, the traveler feels safe, safe enough to release the constant vigilance, safe enough to let the heart soften, safe enough to believe that they will not be harmed by the one who invites them into rest. The river nearby hums with gentle rhythm, a rhythm that echoes the new cadence forming inside the traveler's soul, a cadence slower than worry, softer than fear, warmer than burden, a cadence shaped by the kindness of Jesus who leads not with pressure but with peace. The traveler places a hand against the trunk of the tree, feeling the solid, unmoving strength beneath their fingertips, and somehow, that strength mirrors the one whose nearness has steadied their trembling heart. Trust grows in environments of gentleness. Trust blooms where the soul is not rushed. Trust strengthens where love does not threaten but reassures. And the traveler feels that reassurance now, a quiet certainty that the one who invites them will not abandon them, will not overwhelm them, will not place weight upon them that they cannot hold. The breath deepens again, warm, slow, and the traveler senses their inner world shifting, a slow leaning into the gentle way God moves toward the weary, a leaning so soft it could be missed if the heart were not finally still enough to feel it. In this moment, trust does not look like bold confidence. It looks like rest, like unclenching, like allowing the heart to stop bracing for the worst and start expecting softness from the one who is gentle in heart. The traveler's hand loosens against the bark of the tree. Their shoulders drop another inch, their whole being drifting into deeper calm, guided by a presence that proves itself trustworthy not with force but with tenderness. The night remains quiet, the stars watch in silent blessing, and the traveler's heart, long weary, long burdened, begins to trust the gentle way of Jesus, a way that leads to rest, to renewal, to peace that touches the soul where it aches the most. The traveler stays nestled beneath the ancient tree, their breath calm and even, their spirit softened by the steady gentleness of the one who sits near, and in this deep stillness, another quiet work begins, not dramatic, not sudden, but slow and holy, like the mending of fragile threads long pulled tight by strain. Healing rarely arrives with noise. It arrives with warmth, with softness, with a gentleness that moves so quietly the heart barely notices until something inside releases for the first time in years. The traveler feels this release now, a subtle easing beneath the ribs, a loosening in the belly, a lightening behind the sternum, all the places where tension had once anchored itself like hidden stones now softening beneath the warmth of divine nearness. Fear has lived in their body, coiled in muscles, woven into breath, lodged in small, tender places that tried their best to remain brave even when the world asked too much. But here, in this deep quiet, fear begins to loosen, not because the traveler forces it out, but because love leaves no room for it to stay. The night air drifts gently across their skin, cool, steady, like a quiet reassurance laid over the heart, and the traveler inhales deeply, drawing in warmth, drawing in calm, drawing in the safety of being completely seen, completely known, completely loved. As the breath travels inward, something remarkable happens. It touches the tight places not to expose them but to soothe them, not to confront them but to cradle them, not to demand they disappear but to let them rest for the first time in a long, long while. And with every inhale, the traveler feels the body respond, muscles unwinding like threads released from knots, shoulders settling downward as if remembering how it feels to no longer hold the weight of unspoken fears, the spine relaxing from the quiet ache of always being prepared for what might go wrong. Fear lived in those spaces. Fear whispered its warnings in the back rooms of the heart. Fear braced the body for storms that never came. But now, in the soft company of divine gentleness, fear finds no foothold. It dissolves like mist in warm air, slowly, quietly, inevitably. The traveler's fingers loosen against the earth, their jaw unclenches, their breath carries warmth into the hollow spaces once filled with worry, and in that warm descent, the soul begins to heal, not in leaps but in soft, steady pulses of peace. The presence beside them remains constant, a quiet companionship that wraps the traveler in the kind of safety only love can provide. A safety that whispers you are no longer holding this alone. You're no longer fighting unseen battles. You're no longer bracing for hurts that love has already covered. The river hums gently nearby, carrying away the remnants of old anxieties, old tensions, old wounds, as though creation itself is participating in the slow healing of the traveler's weary heart. Another breath rises, slow, deep, warm, and with it, another layer of fear loosens, a fear of failing, a fear of disappointing, a fear of not being enough, each one slipping away like sand released from open hands. The traveler leans slightly to the side, body falling into a posture that feels softer, safer, as though the heart has finally found permission to stop guarding the fragile places, to stop protecting the wounds, to stop pretending it is unscathed. Healing does not erase the past. It eases its grip. It softens its shadows. It transforms the places once clenched into places capable of holding peace. And as the traveler rests deeper, their spirit hums quietly with recognition. This slow healing is not the result of effort. It is the result of presence. The presence of the one who heals with warmth, not force, with gentleness, not demand, with love that wraps the weary in rest. The traveler remains nestled beneath the ancient tree, their breath warm and steady, their muscles softened into the ground, their spirit resting in a quiet it has not known for such a long time, and in this holy stillness, a deeper truth begins to rise. Rest does not come from exhaustion ending, rest comes from being held. It is a truth the heart rarely learns quickly. For so long the traveler believed that rest was something they had to reach, something they had to earn, something they had to make space for by fixing everything first, solving everything first, carrying everything first. But here, beneath the canopy of night, with Jesus near enough for the soul to feel his quiet presence, the traveler begins to understand something new. Rest is not a destination but a person. The presence beside them deepens, warmth settling around their shoulders like a soft, familiar blanket, a weight that comforts without pressing down, a nearness that steadies without taking anything away, a love that holds without demanding strength in return. The traveler exhales slowly, a deep, warm breath that drifts out into the night air, and with it comes the gentle awareness that they are no longer managing their own rest, they are receiving it. It feels like being carried, not away from their life, but through it, through the inner weariness, through the unspoken heaviness, through the quiet ache they had tried so long to handle alone. Their hands rest loosely in their lap, fingers no longer curled with tension, palms open in a soft posture of surrender, as though even the body knows it is safe to stop holding so tightly. The river murmurs beside them, a gentle, steady voice woven from flowing water and moonlit currents, and the sound wraps the traveler in a lullaby-like calm, a reminder that life can move without their constant effort, that peace can rise without their constant striving, that rest can come without forcing it. The presence of Jesus feels near in the quiet, not seen but unmistakably felt, a closeness that feels like hands hovering softly near a trembling heart, not touching but surrounding, as though shielding the traveler from any weight that might dare to return. This is rest. Not the absence of burden but the presence of love. Not the closing of eyes but the opening of trust. Not the quiet the world gives but the deep, soul-anchored peace that comes from being held by the gentle one. The traveler lets their back rest against the tree's warm trunk, the solid strength beneath them echoing the greater strength that now carries the weight their spirit once held alone. And in this leaning, the traveler feels it, a subtle shift from self-carrying to God-carrying. Another breath rises, full, warm, unhurried, and the traveler senses a quiet sweetness beginning to spread through their inner world, a sweetness formed not from understanding but from safety, from nearness, from the soft, constant truth that they are no longer holding themselves upright in the dark. There is no pressure here, no expectation, no urgency. Rest flows gently like a stream cascading over smooth stones, steady, soft, alive, reaching every corner of the weary soul. Fear cannot anchor itself where love holds so closely. Worry cannot tighten where gentleness surrounds. Weariness cannot dominate where presence becomes a shelter for the tired heart. The traveler nestles deeper into the earth, safe, covered, held, and in that sacred quiet their soul whispers the truth it had forgotten. Rest is not found in what the traveler avoids or accomplishes. Rest is found in the one who holds them with a love that never sleeps. The traveler remains beneath the ancient tree, body warm against the earth, breath steady and slow, spirit resting in the gentle nearness of the one who holds them, and in this layered quiet, something tender begins to unfold, not a sudden shift, not a dramatic awakening, but a soft transformation that moves like dawn through the deepest chambers of a weary soul. Transformation does not always roar. More often, it whispers. It moves like warm light on cold stone, like soft water finding its way into dry soil, like a gentle hand relaxing what was once clenched for too long. The traveler feels this warmth rising, subtle at first, a soft glow beneath the sternum, a loosening at the center of the ribs, a gentle unfurling in places once curled inward from long-held strain. It feels like something inside is beginning to bloom, not quickly, but lovingly, as though the heart is rediscovering itself under the safe presence of divine gentleness. The river murmurs softly nearby, each ripple carrying a quiet rhythm of renewal, and the night air moves across the traveler's skin with a cool tenderness that reminds them they are no longer braced for impact, no longer holding the world with tense, tired hands, no longer fighting unseen battles beneath the surface. Transformation blooms where trust has taken root. Transformation blossoms where fear has been eased. Transformation thrives where the soul no longer hides from the one who calls it to rest. The traveler shifts slightly, not in restlessness but in softness, as though their body is aligning itself with the new calm forming inside. A calm so gentle it feels like a warm tide washing over old wounds with healing instead of pressure. Thoughts no longer race. Memories no longer sting. Worries no longer dictate the rhythm of the heart. Instead, the traveler feels a quiet clarity, not of answers but of peace, a sense that rest is becoming part of them, settling into their spirit like light settling onto still water. The presence beside them grows more tangible, not in form but in feeling, a surrounding warmth that touches the weary places with sacred tenderness, an encompassing gentleness that transforms the heart from the inside out. The traveler lifts a hand to their chest, fingers brushing lightly over their heartbeat, and feels it, a rhythm that once carried the echoes of strain now beating with softness, slowness, a newfound steadiness born not from effort but from being held. This is transformation, the shifting of a heart that no longer expects to fend for itself, the settling of a spirit that no longer believes it must earn its rest, the renewal of a soul that has discovered the truth of Jesus' invitation not as concept but as lived peace. My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. The words move through the traveler like warm oil across tired hands, soothing the places where heaviness once lived, softening the weight that once pressed against the edges of their mind, reminding them that transformation is not the result of striving but of nearness. The tree above them shifts with a gentle sway, leaves whispering softly in the cool air, and the sound feels like creation itself celebrating the small, sacred miracle taking place within the traveler, a miracle of rest, of release, of renewal. The traveler's breath deepens again, slow, warm, effortless, and the soul sinks further into quiet peace, a peace that marks the soft transformation of a once weary spirit into a heart finally ready to receive rest as a gift.
Nothing has been forced. Nothing rushed. Nothing demanded. Everything unfolded gently under the steady presence of divine love. The traveler remains beneath the wide embrace of the ancient tree, breath slow and deep, spirit wrapped in the soft transformation that has been unfolding like dawn across the soul. And in this quiet, a new tenderness begins to rise, a tenderness not born of emotion alone but of being reshaped by the gentleness of God. The heart, once crowded with worry, once heavy with unspoken burdens, once guarded with quiet fear, now feels different. Warmer, softer, more spacious, as though peace has carved new room within the deepest chambers of the traveler's inner world. Stillness begins to take root not as emptiness but as presence, a presence that feels like warm light settling over still water, a presence that breathes into every corner of the soul with unwavering calm. The traveler places a hand over their chest again, fingers gently sensing the new steadiness of their heartbeat, no longer rushed by anxious thought, no longer tightened by hidden fear, but moving in slow, comforting rhythm, the rhythm of a heart held by love. Still love. Quiet love.
Love that does not demand or overwhelm, love that simply stays near, stays gentle, stays patient, until the soul learns how to rest in its presence. The river murmurs softly nearby, its subtle, unbroken song flowing through the night like a gentle reminder. Peace does not have to be pushed. It can be received, it can be allowed, it can be welcomed with soft, unguarded breath. The traveler inhales again, warm air filling their chest, and as they do, they feel love settle deeper, not excitement, not intensity, but quiet love, a love that feels like a warm blanket drawn gently around weary shoulders, a love that turns the heart into a sanctuary instead of a battlefield.
This love does not rise from within them.
It comes from the one who sits near, the one whose presence has been slowly, faithfully rewriting the inner patterns of strain and fear, the one who said, "My yoke is easy, my burden is light," and meant every gentle word. The traveler tilts their face upward, eyes still closed, feeling the faint coolness of night air brush their skin, and beneath that coolness a steady warmth remains, a warmth that does not fade with the breeze, a warmth that does not diminish with stillness, a warmth that is not from the air but from the nearness of God. And this warmth begins to overflow, softly, quietly, like light spilling over the rim of a lantern, small at first, then steadier, then filling the entire inner space with gentle radiance. This is what happens when the weary soul rests long enough in the presence of divine gentleness. The heart becomes a place of still love, a place where the echoes of fear grow faint, a place where old tension dissolves, a place where peace settles like dust in sunlight, a place where love does not have to fight to enter, because it has been welcomed, softened into, received. The traveler feels it profoundly now. Their heart is no longer gripping, no longer bracing, no longer collapsing into worry. It is resting, breathing, opening, becoming a quiet sanctuary where love can remain, not temporarily, but continually.
This still love is not the end of the journey. It is the center of it.
The place where true rest begins, where burdens fade, where the soul learns to be held without fear, where the traveler senses that their heart is finally becoming what it was always meant to be, a place of trust, a place of calm, a place of gentle, steady love. The night deepens around them, stars shimmering like soft prayers overhead, the river breathing quietly in the distance, and the traveler rests in the quiet sanctuary their heart has become, a heart no longer driven by weariness, but filled with the still love of God's gentle presence. The traveler remains beneath the ancient tree, the air cool and tender around them, the heartbeat steady beneath the touch of their own hand, and in this deeper quiet, a final work begins, the slow, gentle release of the last remaining burdens that still linger in the corners of a once tired soul. These burdens are subtle, quieter than the heavy ones already loosened. They hide beneath old habits, beneath familiar thoughts, beneath patterns of coping that once felt necessary for survival. But here, in the warm hush of divine nearness, in the softness of a heart transformed, in the still love now filling the spirit, those hidden burdens rise with tenderness, like small shadows finally stepping into warm light without fear. The traveler inhales slowly, a long, warm breath that reaches deep into the ribs, and as the breath settles, they feel it, something small and tight unwinding in the core, something that had clung to old fear, old striving, old stories about what they must hold to remain safe. The night listens. The tree listens. The presence beside them listens. And in that patient listening, the traveler senses permission. Permission to release even the smallest weight, even the quietest ache, even the faintest thread of tension woven into the soul. A soft exhale drifts out, gentle, unforced, carrying with it a whisper of burden that no longer belongs to a heart learning rest, a heart learning trust, a heart becoming still enough to let go completely. The traveler leans their head back against the sturdy trunk behind them, the bark warm from the memory of sunlight, its strength meeting the traveler's softness with perfect gentleness, and that support makes one more release possible, the burden of self-protection. That quiet, hidden guarding the soul has done for years, without applause, without rest, without being understood. Another breath rises, deeper this time, and the traveler feels the invisible armor begin to loosen, falling away not with clatter but with softness, with warmth, with the tenderness of letting down defenses in the presence of perfect love. The river hums its quiet lullaby, each sound a reminder that letting go does not mean loss, it means being carried, guided, held, moved gently toward peace. Small burdens rise next, the burden of needing answers, the burden of worrying about tomorrow, the burden of past moments that still echo faintly, the burden of perfection the soul never asked for but tried to uphold. They rise, they soften, and they drift outward on the breath like tiny leaves released into a gentle stream, carried away by a God who calls the weary to lay every weight at his feet. The traveler's body grows heavier in the sweetest way, a heaviness born not of fatigue but of release, the kind of heaviness that sinks into comfort, into warmth, into surrender, into the soft assurance that nothing more needs to be held tonight. Their hands relax fully, fingers uncurling into the cool soil, as though offering their last unseen burdens into the earth where God can transform them into something lighter, something gentler, something peaceful. The presence beside them gathers even closer, still without pressure, still without urgency, still without expectation, and the traveler senses that this is holy ground, the moment where everything that once weighed the spirit is finally laid down in the tender safety of divine love. Another exhale drifts out, long, warm, hushed, and the night receives it with reverence, as though creation itself stands witness to the quiet surrender of a soul unburdening at last.
The heart rests deeper. The mind softens further. The spirit settles fully.
And in this deep release, everything the traveler once carried now rests gently in the hands of the one whose love can hold it all with ease.
What remains is peace. What remains is warmth.
What remains is rest finally uncluttered by weight. The traveler remains resting beneath the ancient tree, a soft quiet wrapped around them, their spirit lighter than it has felt in many long, unspoken seasons. And in this warm stillness, a new awareness begins to form, an awareness gentle as dawn, steady as river light, quiet as grace settling over a once burdened heart. With every breath, the traveler feels it more clearly. The presence beside them has not merely lightened their burdens, it has offered something tender, something steady, something that wraps the soul with warmth instead of weight, a yoke not of pressure but of companionship.
Take my yoke upon you.
The words rise again within the traveler, soft, slow, woven through the night air like a warm breeze brushing across the surface of still water. And for the first time, they understand, this yoke is not placed on the weary, it is shared with them. The traveler senses it, a gentle joining, a subtle aligning between their tired heart and the presence of Jesus resting quietly near. An alignment that feels like being steadied, like being accompanied, like being guided with kindness instead of expectation.
This yoke does not pull. It supports. It steadies.
It leans with the traveler so the weight of the journey no longer rests on fragile shoulders alone. The river hums softly nearby, its gentle rhythm echoing the shared cadence now forming between the traveler and the one who walks with them. A cadence unhurried, unpressed, filled with peace instead of striving. The traveler lifts their chin slightly, eyes still closed, as though leaning into the nearness of a companion who cares more deeply than the heart has ever dared to believe. And in that leaning, they feel it, a quiet settling of their inner weight into hands stronger than their own.
For my yoke is easy.
The words drift through the soul like warm oil poured gently over tired wounds, softening old scars, soothing long-held tension, reminding the traveler that ease is not the absence of responsibility. It is the presence of a God who carries the heaviest part of every burden.
And my burden is light.
The traveler breathes deeply, a breath that glows with warmth beneath the ribs, and with that exhale comes a quiet revelation. The only burden Jesus gives is love, and love is light. A tenderness spreads through the traveler's chest, not sharp but soft, the kind of softness that reshapes the inner world without force, the kind of softness that holds a soul as it learns to walk without fear. This is the embrace of his yoke, a joining that turns isolation into companionship, pressure into peace, weariness into rest, and fear into quiet assurance that no step will ever again be taken without his gentle presence beside the traveler's own. The traveler lets their body lean against the sturdy trunk behind them, supported, anchored, cradled by strength they do not have to generate, and with that small leaning, the heart whispers its soft assent. I am not alone. I am not carrying myself anymore. I am held in a yoke of love. The night deepens around them, stars shimmering like silent witnesses overhead, the air cool and fragrant, the river steady and clear, and the traveler rests in the tender truth that they have been joined, not with burden but with grace, not with pressure but with gentleness, not with loneliness but with divine companionship.
This yoke is not something they wear. It is someone they walk with.
A presence steady enough to keep their steps aligned with peace, with rest, with love. And as the traveler sinks deeper into that sacred embrace, The heart settles into one truth more deeply than ever. This gentle yoke is the safest place their weary soul has ever known. The traveler remains beneath the ancient tree, the gentle embrace of the divine yoke wrapped around their spirit like warm night air. And in this tender nearness, another shift begins, not upward, not outward, but downward, into deeper calm, into softer stillness, into a sacred quiet that gathers like dusk inside the heart. This quiet is different from the stillness that came before. It is deeper, heavier, gentler, as though the soul is sinking into warm water, slowly, gracefully, carried without effort into deeper rest. The traveler's breath slows, becoming wide and warm, soft as a night breeze moving through tall grass, their body settling heavily, sweetly, into the shape of the earth beneath them, every muscle unwinding, every thought softening until the mind feels like a distant horizon, far away, quiet, unburdened. The river hums in the darkness, its sound steady and low, a gentle thread of constancy that holds the night together, and the rhythm of its whisper pulls the traveler deeper into rest, a rest that feels like being wrapped in layers of soft shadow and warm breath. The presence of Jesus gathers even closer, not overwhelming, not intense, but tender, steady, a warmth leaning quietly against the traveler's spirit, as though keeping watch in holy silence. And in that nearness, the soul continues its descent, not falling, not slipping, but sinking into a calm so profound it feels like floating, like being buoyed by love itself. This is sacred quiet, the quiet that comes when every fear has loosened, when every burden has been released, when the heart has surrendered to a presence gentle enough to hold even its deepest fragility, with tenderness instead of tension. The traveler's eyelids grow heavier, though they are already closed, a heaviness born not of fatigue but of surrender, a surrender that says I no longer need to hold myself awake against the world. I am safe enough to descend, to rest, to be still. Thoughts drift like slow-moving clouds across a quiet sky, each one passing without urgency, without weight, without the pull that once anchored the mind in constant motion. The heart beats softly, each pulse slower, more spacious, as though beating in time with the river's whisper, with the breeze's gentle sway, with the steady presence of the one who holds the tired soul close. Even the night seems to hush, as though witnessing the sacred work unfolding within the traveler, the work of peace settling into the deepest spaces once claimed by strain. Stillness pools beneath the ribs, warm, soothing, settling into hollow places that once echoed with anxiety, filling them with a calm so tender it feels like cradle light rocking the soul into deeper rest. The traveler drifts lower, into a soft quiet beyond words, beyond thought, beyond resistance, a quiet that receives them fully, without asking anything in return. This descent is not escape. It is healing. It is restoration. It is the soul returning to the place it was created to rest, in the gentle presence of God. Every part of the traveler feels held now, the weary body, the softened spirit, the once tired mind, all wrapped in a quiet so deep it feels like being embraced by the night itself, a night carried in God's hands. Nothing is asked. Nothing is expected. Nothing is required. Only rest. Only release. Only drifting deeper into the sacred quiet where God waits to cradle the weary in peace. The traveler remains in the deep hush beneath the ancient tree, their breath now a slow, warm tide, their spirit floating in the sacred quiet that has gathered around them like a gentle cloak, and in this profound stillness, the night itself seems to lean close, not dark, not empty, but filled with the soft presence of a promise that does not fade.
The promise of rest. The promise of nearness. The promise of a burden made light not by effort but by love. The air carries this promise like a warm whisper through the branches overhead, each leaf rustling softly as though echoing a truth older than the stars, a truth spoken once by the gentle one whose voice wraps the weary in peace. Come to me, and I will give you rest. The words drift through the traveler's spirit once more, softly, slowly, like a lullaby carried by wind, and they settle deeper than they ever have before, not as invitation now but as assurance, a quiet knowing woven into the very rhythm of the traveler's breath. The river hums with low, steady tones, its movement gentle and unbroken, carrying reflections of starlight across its surface, and the sound wraps the traveler in a sense of being held by something constant, something trustworthy, something that will remain even as the world shifts and changes. A warmth begins to rise beneath the traveler's ribs, a soft spreading glow that feels like comfort woven directly into the soul, a comforting certainty that rest is no longer momentary, no longer fragile, no longer out of reach. It has become a promise. A promise God Himself keeps. The traveler's limbs grow heavier in the sweetest way, not weighed down by burden but by peace, a peace thick and warm as dusk settling over quiet fields, a peace that sinks deeper into muscle, into bone, into the slow, steady beat of the traveler's gentle heart. The night surrounds them with softness, soft shadows, soft breeze, soft darkness filled with holy calm, as though every element of creation has been stilled to cradle the soul as it drifts toward the edge of sleep. Fear cannot breathe here. Worry cannot linger here. Exhaustion cannot rule here. For the promise of Jesus, His gentle rest, has woven itself through every part of the traveler's being, quieter than thought, stronger than weariness, steady as His nearness beside the tree. Another long breath rises, slower now, warmer now, as though the traveler's very body is preparing to cross into deeper rest, a rest carried by the one who keeps watch even through the darkest hours. The traveler senses it clearly. The night will not leave them alone. God will not leave them alone. This rest will not vanish when their eyes close. The gentle yoke will not slip away when sleep takes hold. They will be held in every breath, in every quiet moment, in every dream that drifts through the night like soft wind through open fields. The promise carries them now, carried like a small boat upon calm, moonlit water, carried by a love that guides without forcing, carried by hands that never grow weary, carried by peace that asks for nothing but surrender. The world around them begins to blur into softer shapes, gentler silhouettes, as though reality itself is dimming its noise to make room for holy rest. And in that dimming, the traveler feels one truth settle over them like a warm blanket: they do not rest alone tonight. They rest beneath a promise woven from the heart of the Gentle One, a promise that wraps the soul in deep, quiet peace until morning light touches the horizon. The traveler remains beneath the ancient tree, the night settled fully around them like a soft, warm shelter, their breath slow and deep, their spirit floating in a quiet so profound it feels woven from starlight and peace. And in this tender stillness, a final calm begins to rise, a calm that wraps the weary heart with the gentle certainty that rest has finally come. Not the fragile rest that fades with morning, not the shallow rest that lingers only on the surface, but rest that reaches all the way into the soul, rest that heals, rest that renews, rest that comes from being held by the one who said, "Come to me." The presence of Jesus remains near, closer than the quiet breeze slipping through the branches, closer than the hush of the river flowing softly beside them, closer than the heartbeat that now moves in slow,
peaceful rhythm. It is a presence steady as dawn, gentle as soft rain, strong enough to carry every weight the traveler released, yet tender enough to cradle the spirit as it drifts towards sleep. The traveler feels it, a warmth beneath the ribs, a lightness behind the eyes, a heaviness in the limbs that speaks not of burden but of surrender, the sweet heaviness that settles into the body when the soul knows it is safe to let go completely. The river's whisper softens, fading into the background like a distant lullaby, and the night wraps the traveler in deeper quiet, a quiet that feels like being drawn gently inward, toward rest, toward stillness, toward the gentle hands of God holding their every breath. Sleep begins to gather around the edges of their awareness, not as something creeping in but as something arriving with kindness, slowly, softly, like warm shadows curling around tired shoulders, inviting them to descend into deeper peace. The traveler does not resist. They do not brace. They do not hesitate. For the heart that once trembled is now steady, the mind that once raced is now quiet, the soul that once carried too much alone is now held in divine embrace. This is rest. Holy rest. The kind Jesus promised to every weary soul who dared to come with trembling heart and tired hands. The traveler sinks deeper, into the earth, into the stillness, into the warm, enveloping quiet, and every part of their being begins to drift, softly, slowly, like a leaf carried gently down a moonlit stream. Thoughts dissolve into gentle blur, memories soften into distant hush, and the world around them fades into a peaceful, muted glow, as sleep opens its arms to receive a heart finally unburdened. The presence of Jesus rests over them like a warm covering, steady, watchful, tender, and the traveler senses, even as consciousness loosens, that they are safe, unchallenged, unworried, wrapped fully in the love that never sleeps. The stars shimmer overhead, subtle, gentle, as if offering a final blessing before the traveler drifts into quiet dreams shaped not by fear but by peace. No burdens remain. No shadows linger. No weight presses. Only rest. Only warmth. Only the deep, healing calm of a soul embraced by the Gentle One. The night holds them. Love holds them. God holds them. And sleep settles at last, soft, full, sacred, a gift from the one who promised rest and kept his promise with tenderness. May their rest be deep, may their dreams be light, may their heart be renewed in the soft cradle of God's everlasting peace. The story is complete. Rest now, and sleep deeply in his gentle care.